let's talk about growth and development. So growth is basically of two types, okay? Two types of growth, and it has 2 points. That is intussusception and accretion. So if I have to talk about intussusception in deep analysis, if we do, then basically intussusception is done in living organism, accretion is done in non-living organism. These both means the growth only. They both mean growth only. But the only difference is intussusception, as the word suggests, it's inside or it's internal growth due to addition of materials and formation of cell inside the body. And this intussusception only takes place in the living organism. My dear friends, we all are aware that growth is intrinsic in living organism, whereas in non-living organism, growth is extrinsic. Growth is extrinsic in non-living organisms. Okay. So over here, accretion is considered like non-living organism increase in size due to similar materials on their surface. Okay, like you must have seen a rock. Okay, suppose you have seen a rock, and that rock has a lot of dust particles onto it, because of which what has happened is that it has been seen. Just a second. It has been seen, like suppose this is a rock. Okay, and a lot of dust particles have been accumulated onto this. Okay, then what has happened? What has happened into this case? That when we first, suppose this is stone A, and this is stone B. This stone A has no dust particles, and the weight which was found was suppose let us assume it's 10 grams. Okay, suppose it's 10 gram. Okay, and suppose that over time what happens, that there is an accumulation of lots of dust particles onto it, and lots of small structures and small crystals onto it. Then what do you think, that should it be considered as, and then what happens next? What happens is, suppose that it becomes 15 gram. What it becomes 15 grams. So do you think that this should be considered as growth? Because over here also I have mentioned over here that increase in mass and increase in number should be considered as the twin characteristic of growth. Over here there is an increase in mass, right? There is of course an increase in mass because there is an accumulation, and because of this accumulation only, what has been turned, there is a 5 gram increment, right? Therefore this should it be like this should be considered as a defining characteristic? For sure not, right? So growth cannot be considered as a defining characteristic of all the living organisms, okay? Because we have seen that this happens also in non-living organisms, right? In non-living organisms also have growth, and that growth is just because of the increase in mass, and increase in mass is also one of the characteristic. Okay, so therefore this growth can't be considered as a defining characteristic of living organism. Okay, now what is a development? It is some total of changes that occur in an organism or organ during its lifetime. So there are different types of things that occur in your body, and there are a number of changes that takes place in different ages, in different stages of your life, right? So what is that? That's just the development that takes place in your body. Okay, now let's move on to the next slide, and let's say no to growth. Okay, so I've over here written that growth cannot be considered as a defining characteristic or defining property, because living and non-living both can be considered as living. Living, since we discussed about intussusception and accretion, and we also know that accumulation of anything on any body doesn't actually mean that it's living. So we cannot say growth as a defining property for living organisms, right? So growth can't be considered at all as a defining characteristic of living organism, because we know that it just having an accumulation of the accumulation of anything on the body doesn't actually means that the body has grown or something like that, and that actually doesn't indicate that the body is living or something. Okay,